All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about something that, sounds like it's all fun and games, but it's actually this incredibly powerful tool for making sense of the world. We're talking about game theory.
So, let me ask you something. Is life just a game? I mean, it's a pretty big question, right? But think about it for a second. Every negotiation you're in, every competition, even just your everyday decisions, a lot of the time, we're making choices based on what we expect other people to do. So, yeah, is it all just one big strategic game?
Well, as it turns out, mathematicians have a name for this whole idea. They call it game theory. And really, it's the science of strategy. It's the math behind making choices when the result isn't just about what you do, but what everyone else does too. Okay, so when we talk about a game here, let's be clear. We're not just talking about chess or poker. Nope, game theory is all about the really high-stakes games. We're talking business, economics, politics, heck, even nature itself. And this quote really nails it. Even though we call it game theory, you could just as easily call it the mathematics of competition. That's what it's all about, really, figuring out the logic behind why people or companies or animals fight and cooperate. So if we're going to understand how these games actually work, we've got to know the rules of play, right? I mean, every single game, doesn't matter if it's a huge corporate takeover or just a simple coin toss, it's built on just a few basic ideas. So let's break them down. Okay, first up, the zero-sum game. This one's super simple to get. It basically means for me to win, you have to lose. My gain is your loss, period. Think about a pizza. If there's only one pie, every slice I take is a slice you can't have. The total adds up to 0. But, and this is a huge but, most of the real world just doesn't work that way. Think about it. In a really good business deal or a successful negotiation, both sides can come out ahead. They can both win. We call these non-zero-sum games. It's where you can actually create more value for everybody or, destroy it. All right, another key idea is information. On one hand, you have games with perfect information. Think of chess. Everything is right there on the board. You see all my moves, I see all your moves. No secrets. But then, you've got games with imperfect information. This is more like poker. You have no idea what cards I'm holding. And that missing info, it completely changes the game. Okay, so that's the theory. It's interesting, but let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world. And what better place to start than the cutthroat world of business, where massive companies are always playing these intense games for a bigger piece of the pie. So let's imagine a scenario. You've got two companies. Let's just call them Corporation A and Corporation B. They're the only two players fighting over a $100 million market. Now, each one has to pick a marketing strategy, and they know their competitor is doing the exact same thing. So, how do you possibly make the best choice? Well, they use something that looks like this. It's called a payoff matrix, and it's pretty much the go-to tool for game theory. So let's take a look. On the left, you've got the different strategies Corporation A can use, and up top, you have the strategies for B. The numbers inside, that's the payoff, in millions of dollars, that Company A gets depending on what both of them decide to do. So, for instance, if A goes with its top strategy and B picks its first one, that top left box tells you exactly how much A walks away with. So, what's the point of all this? Well, the goal for each company is to find what's called an equilibrium, or a saddle point. It's basically a stable outcome, a point where neither company has any reason to change what they're doing, as long as the other one doesn't either. It's the most likely, most predictable way the game is going to end. Okay, so how do they find that sweet spot? Let's actually walk through the logic. Put yourself in Company A's shoes. You look at B's options. If B picks their first strategy, A should definitely pick their first strategy to get the best payoff. But what if B picks their second strategy? Well then, A should switch to their second strategy to get that $30 million. Now let's flip it. Think like Company B, trying to keep A's winnings as low as possible. If A picks strategy 1, B is going to pick their second strategy to hold A down. And if A picks strategy 2, well, B is still going to pick their second strategy to limit A to that $30 million. See? Both lines of thinking lead to the same place. The stable outcome is where they both choose their second strategy. And in that scenario, Corporation A gets $30 million. That's the power of thinking things through like this. All right, now for a big jump. Let's go from the corporate boardroom straight into the wild. It might sound like a crazy leap, I know, but the exact same kind of strategic thinking applies to the most basic game there is, the game of survival. The players are different, the stakes are different, but you'll be surprised how similar the rules are. So let's look at a classic example from biology.
Imagine a population with two kinds of animals. You've got the aggressive hawks, they'll always fight over food. And then you have the peaceful doves, they'd rather just share or back off. So the question is, what happens when a hawk meets a dove? Or a hawk meets another hawk?
And yep, you guessed it, we can map this out with another payoff matrix. Let's look at the numbers. If you're a hawk and you run into a dove, you win big. You get a payoff of 10, easy win. But if a hawk meets another hawk, they both fight, and they're likely to get hurt. That's a -5, not great. Now, what about the doves? Well, a dove gets nothing when it meets a hawk. It just backs off. But when two doves meet, they share the resource peacefully and both get a nice little payoff of 4. So you can see the trade-off here, right? It's all about aggression versus cooperation.
So this brings up a really fascinating question. Over time, over many generations, which strategy is actually going to win? Biologists have a cool concept for this, and it comes straight from game theory. It's called an evolutionarily stable strategy, or ESS for short. Basically, an ESS is a strategy that's so successful that once most of the population is doing it, no new mutant strategy can come in and beat it.
So, from huge corporations fighting for market share all the way down to animals competing for food, game theory gives us this incredible lens to understand why they make the choices they do. So what's the big takeaway here? What should you remember for your next move?
I think the most important thing to remember is that game theory isn't just some abstract math concept. It's a real, practical toolkit for thinking strategically. It gives us a way to model both fighting and working together. It helps us predict what might happen when everyone is just trying to do what's best for them. And ultimately, it helps us see the hidden logic behind so many of the decisions that shape our world, from the boardroom all the way to the biosphere.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. Because whether you're negotiating a raise, planning your next career move, or even just figuring out who's going to do the dishes tonight, you are constantly involved in these little strategic games. So, I'll leave you with this. What game are you playing right now? And what could game theory tell you about how to make your next move?